Henshin a go-go, baby. What's good, guys? Yoku here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the meta analysis, or rather I want to give you a meta analysis on version 1.4 coming from 1.3, because a lot of y'all yesterday had some thoughts and opinions that I love. We got to discuss some things about the meta, about the tier list, about the game, and I want to break that down in a more concise manner, but I want to pick and choose some things. I don't want to talk about the entire roster of characters because it's way too much. So let's break down some of the major changes that I think affected 1.4. Now, in the previous Memory of Chaos, we did have the particular buff, which I believe was disassociation, being able to attack or stack something against the enemies, and then you randomly get that freeze that is super helpful for trying to clear Memory of Chaos, or trying to clear any floor for that matter within Memory of Chaos. Right now in version 1.4, we do have a different Memory of Chaos stack, and this is going to be the memory imprint. And what this particular turbulence does is anytime you attack an enemy target, whether they be elite level or higher, you are going to be able to stack this memory imprint on them, and then enemies around them, or surrounding enemies as to say, will receive 30% of that original damage towards whatever's going on. Now this of course is going to help have Topaz look or feel like she is doing blast damage, and you're stacking whatever Topaz does to that main target while still being able to do a little bit more damage that's the original damage to the surrounding enemies, and it makes her even better. Now if we look at this, and we're looking at the particular stats over here on Pridewind to show off some of the characters that we have right now being used inside of MOC 10, and I believe this is going to be for 1.1 or 1.4, so it should be currently updated. You can see that Fushwin, of course, is going to be rising to the top. I'll explain why. You see Silverwolf going down. I'll explain why. You see Locha having a little bit of a drop down. Not anything because Locha is bad or anything like that. It just is what it is. Jingliu's here. She's here to stay. Seele had a tremendous drop. I'll explain why. And then you have Blade, Imbibitor Lunae, Kafka, and of course Jingliu. You see a lot more people trying to use Himeko. There's a good reason for that. And then of course Bronya is always going to be Bronya. Now when it comes to your 4-star characters, obviously Pela's up there. You see Asta up there, similar to why you're going to see Himeko up there. You're going to see Sampo. You're going to see Fire Trailblazer. You're going to see Yukong a little bit. I'm surprised about Yukong actually, but that might explain the double DPS thing that I've been trying to push for a little bit. QQ going up because Seele is going down. Not in the tier, not in the tier. Please don't think that. Not in the tier list at all. Lastly, you'll see that Hook is having a little bit of going up as well. So let me go over that with using their tier list here. And we went over this in the previous video where I broke down some of the criteria a little bit. I'm just going to show it here for those that maybe haven't seen that video, or you haven't looked at Pridewind. This isn't a tier list video, mind you. I just want to, I'm showing you guys that so that we could talk about this. And yes, a lot of you were, not a lot, a few of you were trying to mention like I didn't click over on Blast and AoE. I technically did. You probably just didn't see me clicking things, but it didn't matter for my argument at hand. I understand that blast damage is for whatever, AoE is going to be for whatever, and then single target is for whatever, and all of these things will be changing. I'm more so talking about this character or these characters in an overall or general sense, not whether or not they're doing something based on single target or doing something based on blast target, which I'm pretty positive nothing changes from what I said yesterday. That being said, we can actually look at a lot of these characters here and see the placements. Lunae and Jingliu, of course, are going to be up there, and they're fine. What I really want to look at here is Topaz and the surrounding characters pertaining to Topaz. Is Topaz being overhyped right now from, like, you know, creators like me? Personally, I don't think so. I think Topaz is very strong. I think she's future proof, at least for now, and she's got really solid damage in the current version of the game. I think she's great. I think she's a character that's outputting a tremendous amount of utility, if you will, and allowing different characters to be placed on multiple teams. You've seen a lot of people trying with Jingliu and Topaz. You've seen more teams popping up with Kafka and Topaz, which is something that I mentioned in my guide. You guys have been seeing triple fire, so Asta, Topaz, and Himeko. Or if you're running something with super fast characters, you're going to start seeing Guinaifen, Topaz, and Himeko, or replace Himeko with Asta. I don't think that's the best thing to do, but you could do it, right? You're going to see these triple fire comps. You're going to see things with Bronya included inside of Topaz. You're going to see things with Pela with Topaz. Topaz just opens the window for a lot of characters to be able to do pretty much anything that they would want to do in regards to building the team. You are no longer glued to a hypercarry type of team comp, which we've seen, or rather had, since the dawn of time when it comes to Star Rail. I do, however, think Topaz is being undervalued. I can see her over here in the debuffer side, which I don't agree with at all. Not to say that she's not a debuffer, but it's more along the lines of that Topaz is both. She's right over here in Seele's territory in terms of S tier or E6 QQ, and I think Topaz sits right there. And again, she does damage, and she's enabling more characters to be placed in different scenarios. Something that I want to go over is probably going to be Kafka, which inherently goes over Jingliu. And quite frankly, I know you guys hate it. Well, not all of you guys are kind of coming around, but I don't think these two are in the same ballpark at all. I cannot agree with that in the slightest. But Topaz is a great pickup right now in the current form of the meta. She's great. I see a lot of people undervaluing her. I think people are, I don't even want to say misunderstanding or misinterpreting this character. I think she's just not a character that a lot of people wanted, being that she was a new hunt class character, limited edition or limited banner. She's fire, and they're putting her in the same territory as Seele. Why doesn't she do Seele levels of damage as quickly as she does? Which isn't necessarily true, but I think it's just a character that people wanted something else out of her. It wasn't that, and so because of that reason, they're pushing Topaz down. Not Prywin. Prywin's not pushing them down. I mean that a lot of players are just simply, you know, skip, hard skip, whatever. When I don't think that's the case at all. I think she's great where she is right now. Speaking of Seele though, is Seele still top tier? I do believe Seele is still a top tier character, and sometimes I'm willing to put Seele in S+ tier. If we come over to look at what's happening inside of Memory of Chaos, you can see all of these different things that are applied to what's going on. And a big part of Memory of Chaos is who is weak to what. Now, Seele's big thing is that she don't care if you're weak to Quantum. She doesn't care if you're weak to Ice or Imaginary. If you can, of course, if you have Silverwolf, that changes things, but Seele being able to penetrate and do whatever she wants anyway adds a lot more value to this character. So some people might still be trying to decide if they want Topaz or Seele, and it really just comes down to who you value more, who you think you're gonna have more fun with. Seele being able to almost consistently, what is this, MOC stage 2, stage 1 has Quantum, stage 2 has Quantum, stage 3 has Quantum, 4 has Quantum. I don't think 5 has Quantum. Okay, so 5 and 6 don't have Quantum. 7 has Quantum. 8 does not have Quantum. 9 has Quantum, and then 10 has Quantum. So you're getting Seele out of what, 7 out of 10 different stages that you could use this character on. So in the long run of things, Quantum is always going to have something that's entirely weak to it. The Deer is always going to have a Quantum thing weak to it, and of course the True Sting, the Swarm itself, will always be weak to Quantum. So there's a lot of value placed inside of Seele as a character. And again, I do think she's still top tier. I think she's going to be top tier for a long time. Her resurgence ability is cracked. I don't want to call it broken anymore, but it is cracked. You keep building her, and if I'm not mistaken, if they create new relics or new planar ornaments or new light cones that she could abuse, that'll just enhance her even further. You get more Aeolans on her for those who are questioning whether or not to, you know, skipping Topaz, but you might already have Seele. Pick up E1 or E2, and then you're going to see a noticeable difference when it comes to the character's damage output. The last big character that I want to talk about would be Himeko. I know this is under the single target section. Even coming over to Blast or AoE, I don't believe Himeko is where she should be. I think Himeko at this current point in the game is a very misunderstood or undervalued character. I think this character is just severely underrated for what she allows different comps to happen, but that'll lead into a different conversation, which I guess we could probably talk about that, right? The dual DPS versus hyper carry comp meta. A lot of the players and what we look at when it comes to what we have going on, look at a hyper carry, and we look at hyper carry in a sense of like, this is the way that it should be played. There's no better way, so on and so forth. But most players don't have every single character. And what I've come to learn is that a lot of the free-to-play or even Dolphin-like players who are forcing hyper carry are hard sticking. Wow, they are hard stuck somewhere between floor 6 to floor 9, and it's because they're building or using this team on one side to completely hyper carry, and on the other side they have no supports. Their DPS can't do anything. They don't have any strong sustains, and the damage, it takes them so long to be able to complete anything or knock out an enemy, if you will, that it's just not worth it anymore. And I do believe that having multiple DPSs, having a dual DPS comp, that's gonna fix that. Topaz plus Himeko is a great dual DPS comp right there. Kafka plus Topaz is a great dual DPS comp. Even if you didn't, and we'll take Kafka again, you could use Kafka Guinaifen, Kafka Sampo, Kafka Welt. Please don't use that, but you guys get what I'm saying. Everything about having multiple DPS characters plus a debuffer or plus one harmony unit that could buff both. In this case, that's why I said earlier, I think that's why Yukong has gotten, I think it was 3% or 4% in terms of a usage increase, because she's able to buff 2 DPS characters at one time. she's going to be using your skill points. So she's very similar to Bronya, where she constantly wants to be using her skill, or would like to, I should say. And then she's able to carry or help carry your DPS characters forward. Himeko works with almost every character in the game, especially the Hunt. Any Hunt class character, Himeko loves being paired up with Hunt class characters. And that goes again into what I was saying in a couple of videos back about Erudition being very strong in a sub DPS role, something that a lot of people, I don't know, maybe you guys think that being a sub DPS is horrible or it's bad, and if your favorite character is a sub DPS, that's not a bad thing at all. Topaz is one of my favorite characters easily, and she fits better in a sub DPS role than a main DPS role. I'm cool with that. We have a growing number of multi-functional characters that do damage and buff. They do damage and debuff. They heal and they buff. They hold sustain and pull aggro. Where the game is headed right now is in a great place. And right now, with the characters we do have available to us, you can start seeing more of these team comps form. If I come down here to the team stats and I go into stage 10, and then I go into the 3-star clear, you're gonna start seeing some things that I'm trying to basically explain to you guys. Hyper carry, hyper carry, hyper carry, hyper carry, hyper carry, hyper carry, hyper carry. Everyone is still, I guess Kafka plus sample wouldn't necessarily count, but it does. Everything is stuck in hyper carry, except rank 10, where you can see Jingliu, Blade, Bronya, Locha, which, for those that don't know, this is actually what would be considered, at least by CN standards, her best team. And it's not because of the damage output itself. It's because the damage output is already high. You don't really need more than what it's giving you. If you want a 0 cycle or 1 cycle or 2 cycle, whatever, this team is capable of doing that. Not only is the damage output high, but it covers your weaknesses. It covers everything. Jingliu is going to cover the blast damage. Blade is going to cover the blast damage. They're both targeting the same character or different characters, and they do such large amounts of damage that they're able to target 2 different characters while still doing damage to the other's enemy respectively. Jingliu targets the ice weak enemy. Blade targets the wind weak enemy, but since they have blast damage, they're doing just enough chip damage across the board for each of them to be able to pick up KOs. Meanwhile, Blade has his follow-up attack. Jingliu is constantly triggering that, so that Blade gets that every single turn. Bronya's being able to boost up someone forward. You have 2 cleanses on the team, Bronya's skill as well as Locha's skill. Locha fields keep everybody healed, and because you're constantly fighting, you're constantly doing damage, you essentially always have full health, or you should have, roughly speaking, high health. This team is great, and this is one of the capabilities that a dual DPS team has, being able to cover each other's weaknesses. A lot of the harmony characters and sustain units, quite frankly, just sit there. If they're not buffing the main DPS, they serve no other purpose. A lot of people like Asta, and then when I asked them what's so great about Asta, especially at E0, and you can see it, even Pride has it here, E0 Asta is simply A tier. I think she's, you know, fine where she is. And then of course E6 Asta, because the stacks never go away, they're basically permanent, she becomes an S tier character. She becomes complete. So when you have Asta, what is Asta doing? Oh, I don't really care about what Asta does. I just want the speed buff. I just want her ultimate. She's just an ultimate battery. You're using her for a specific purpose, and the rest of her kit doesn't matter. I mean, obviously the attack buff matters, but I'm just gonna throw that in with the speed buff, right? The ultimate. So you're using her to buff. In Silverwolf's case, I actually got a comment in one of my previous videos going over the fact that Silverwolf was a skill hungry character, and they were constantly using skill every single turn, which in reality, you were playing Silverwolf wrong, my friend. You should not be using Silverwolf skill every single turn unless you can't get Quantum or whatever element you're trying to get, and you're just unlucky at that point, start over. But you are not supposed to be doing that. Everything that Silverwolf does applies a debuff. You have the effect hit rate, you have the break effect build for Silverwolf, and you have a sub DPS where she's actually able to do some consistent damage. So pairing Silverwolf with any of the other DPS characters makes it viable to the point where you could make her the sub DPS while also having her do the debuff. You know what other character does this? Topaz. So now you have a different option for bringing in more variety to whatever you have going on. On substage 2, you can see it. It's just pure hyper carry, and I hate that we're here. I hate this idea that pure hyper carry is really what's pushing it. And again, I really do understand that hyper carry is the fastest clear for a lot of people. It's easy for a lot of people. If I were to look at both of these between each side, there are some commonalities that I could see between, you know, one side all Silverwolf, the other side all Pela, or vice versa. If they didn't have Pela, they have Silverwolf, which most players have come out and said, I don't have them. Most players don't have a Bronya. You can see on each side, there is a Bronya. There's Jingliu. Asta is only on one side. Sampo's on another. Kafka's there. Imbibitor Lunae is on another. Yukong is there. There's a lot of differences when it comes to team building. But again, for the final time, opening up the door for double DPS comps, or any other comp for that matter that's not hyper carry, is much more viable. It's much easier to access than a hyper carry comp on both sides for the entirety of MOC. Even with the idea that for some reason your sustain was just a sustain, we no longer have that. Locha was probably the last sustain that is just a sustain. He heals and that's what he does. I've seen a couple people using some damaging Lochas, but I haven't seen a real Locha that, like, okay, I can consider him a sub DPS Locha. Fu Xuan, on the other hand, not only is she buffing your team, she's giving you what, 2 or 3 different crit roll stats basically. So she's giving you a free relic piece for the crit rate. She's giving you the damage buff from the force field. She's giving you increased HP, so another relic, if you will, and it's reduced damage. Fu Xuan is a character by herself that is cracked. This character should not have existed, but she does. Grabbing Fu Xuan was the best thing for a lot of you, and I respect you for it. We are getting more Fu Xuans. The game is delivering more Fu Xuans. I think that's the easiest way for me to explain that. Fu Xuan comes into the game, boom. Topaz comes into the game, boom, that's another Fu Xuan. And no, I'm not saying that Topaz is sustain. What I mean is that these are multifunctional characters. Their purpose is one thing, but their purpose is, or their sub purpose is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other things that they're able to do. So they're able to help replace the need for another character on the team. Fu Xuan, while she's not giving you an insane damage buff, is still able to help you replace needing a harmony unit on the team. There are a lot of teams that can exist without the harmony unit, and that's where you do get the chance to, like, you know what, I think I want to run Kafka, Topaz, Guinaifen, and Fu Xuan. How does that work out for me? And you'll find out that it works very well for you. Yeah, maybe I want to run Topaz and Himeko with Asta and then Fu Xuan. That works out for you, and it's actually a really strong team. Now, I know that was a lot to take in, but I can't leave without telling you guys about Guinaifen. We have to talk about Guinaifen because I think I might just be a really big fan of Guinaifen. Gwyn is one of the characters that I think she's going to be underestimated for now. I do know, or rather I've seen that Pridewin has her at E6, then she's in the S tier category, or maybe she's A tier if I'm not mistaken. And I think that might be okay. I think Guinaifen is one of those characters, especially being the Hilly, her kit is just really good. In fact, I believe Fire Kiss should have been what Burn did all along. The ability for Fire Kiss being able to amplify the damage received to whatever enemy by X amount. And it's lasting for 3 turns. You can stack it up to 3 times and you can constantly keep refreshing it. It applies whenever there's a burn. They take burn damage, Fire Kiss happens. Building the effect hit rate on her is like, what, you need like 23% or something like that, or whatever it is. And then it's guaranteed across the board. There's very little you have to do in order to make sure Guinaifen does her job, which in this case being Fire Kiss. As a character, Guinaifen is able to be picked up by anybody. Any single team can use Guinaifen. She's a great pickup for anyone, but more important for Kafka players. Kafka players get to benefit not only from the Fire Kiss, but they also benefit from the burn. And doing something that I had a blast doing was building a Break Guinaifen. Break Guinaifen allows you to trigger this with Kafka. Guinaifen does break, huge fire damage because break fire is just as strong as bleed. I was gonna say break bleed, but physical break. Physical and fire have the strongest break attacks in the game. Then their DPS values for DOT, they differ. Burn has the weakest DOT, so it's like but if you can constantly re-trigger the break fire, because that's what Kafka does, then you're able to build into that. The damage received is being boosted. You now add Fu Xuan into the team, like I mentioned earlier, and Fu Xuan is going to be able to boost that up. You add another DPS character, in this case Topaz, and now Topaz is going to be able to not only increase her own damage because of the way her kit works, thanks to the follow-up attack vulnerability, but it's also being increased by Guinaifen, who is then triggering it for Kafka, who is then helping trigger the follow-up attacks for Numbi. Then you add into the ultimates, you add into the burns, you're constantly triggering things. On paper, which I mean in actuality, to be fair, because I've already played it, I've done the work for it, this team is cracked. It improves further with more characters coming into the game. Guinaifen is such a good character, especially for Kafka teams. The way that this is going to operate is she essentially replaces the need for Silverwolf. Now, I'm not saying that she is on par with Silverwolf at all, But what I mean by that is if you don't have Silverwolf, if you're a newer player who played once PlayStation dropped, you're a newer player who played a couple patches before and you just missed out on Silverwolf, or you skipped her for whatever reason, but you have other characters. Maybe you have Sampo, maybe you have Luca, maybe you have Serval, maybe you're trying to use Himeko with her burn. There's a couple different things that you could do. Picking up Guinaifen would be even better for you. Right now, especially with 1.4, I'm really excited for 1.5. The characters that they've drip fed for 1.5, and I think they also drip fed 1.6. Both of these sets of characters look very interesting to me. What they're going to bring to the table, how they're going to adjust the game, whether or not the game is going to get even a little bit more difficult. We've seen this type of stuff with Simulated Universe, and it kind of feels like they're treating Simulated Universe a lot better than Memory of Chaos, which I guess maybe Simulated Universe is where I should be playing all along. Who knows? Let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts and opinions on the current form of the meta, or the current state of the meta. What do you expect out of the game? What do you want from the game? What more do you want out of certain characters? And the ultimate question, how do you feel about Guinaifen? Because if you say anything negative about Guinaifen, I'm gonna send Freddy Fazbear to your house. His name's not Freddy Fazbear, it's Freddy Fazbear.